First, maybe just tell the folks at home or on the internet a little bit about yourself and why you're running for Harbor District.
Well, I made a decision to run for Harbor Commission actually rather quickly. It's not that I haven't been involved in the Bay for many, many years, because I have, and being involved in the Bay has always been a passion for me. But I was out sailing on Wednesday night with John Bradley. He used to own J. Bradley sign company next door here. And we were out sailing, and it was just a really beautiful night out in the bay. It reminded me of what a great resource we have here, and how inspirational it is. So the next day, I wake up, and my wife and I are sitting at the breakfast table, and she said, "Did you read this, that Dennis Hunter isn't going to run for Harbor Commission in the 4th District?" And I said, "Is that right?" And she said, "You know, you really love the Bay with a passion, and you should do that. You should run for that office." Well, I've done a lot of community development and community organizing work in my life, and a lot of volunteer work, but I've never run for an elective office. And I said, you know, if I'm ever going to do this, if I'm ever going to run for an office, this is the time, because it's something that I really do care about. And I really feel that at some point in your life, you have a duty in a democratic society to spend some time doing these kinds of things, to actually take the responsibility of elective office and to go through that process and get your ideas out there and see if people agree with you, if enough people agree with you to elect you into that office. So that was, you know, the reason for it. I'm not a very political person. I don't belong to any of the parties, Democratic or Republican. I'm a registered independent, and I always thought of myself as that. I look at what the issues are involved and try to make something happen. So I've been an architect for 27 years, and my career has always been about taking projects and making decisions and putting the best elements together to create a beautiful environment. I mean, that's what architects do. We really look at life through a different lens. My career has always been about making sustainable buildings and environments for people. And I think that way of thinking, that creative way of thinking, is something that could be useful in making the decisions and doing the projects that are on the Bay. I've got involved in the Bay 15 years ago. When I first moved up here, I was really involved in sailing and running and doing different kinds of recreational activities like that when I was living down south in Los Angeles. When I moved up here, I looked at the Bay and said, you know, I really need to find a way of interacting with that, and that's when I took up kayaking. I loved it so much, I wanted to spread the word and get more people involved. I took trips up to the Puget Sound and also down south, do kayak expeditions. Met a lot of people in the water trails movement in the country, and actually was involved on a national scale with the National Water Trail Association. So with that background, I founded an organization called Explore North Coast, and started sending out emails to kayakers that I met, meeting people at the local outdoor stores and getting them out in the Bay. We eventually started setting up training sessions, working with Humboldt State and with their training program, starting Paddle Fest. I was one of the initial creators of Paddle Fest, got that going, and we grew Explore North Coast into an organization of over 100 people. One of the projects that we had going that has never been completed is a water trail on Humboldt Bay with campsites and improved boat launching sites for kayaks and small sailboats. That's one of the things I want to do as a commissioner, is to improve upon the recreational activities on the Bay. But recreation is only part of it. I realize that there's also, it's the responsibility of a commissioner to be involved in commerce and to be involved in conservation. My strengths in commerce and with my architectural background has always been in taking what already exists and making it better, adapting its use and so that it works better economically into the future. And that is what is, I believe, is really needed to move forward. When I read the strategic plan of the Harbor Commission, I realized that was written a number of years ago. I think it was back in 2003. There's actually a statement in there that says that the Harbor Commission will not have a policy of being energy efficient. And I was shocked to read that. I was shocked that somebody would make a statement that says we're not going to encourage our projects to be sustainable. If I'm elected, we'll think a lot about that, and all of the existing buildings I would want to look at and say, what can we do to make what we already have more sustainable? How do we retrofit it? How do we do lighting systems so that we can reduce our energy bill? How do we daylight some of the facilities in there? How do we put sensors in restrooms and other public facilities so that we're not wasting energy? How do we handle runoff from the parking lots that we there? What can we do to add vegetative swales that will handle some of the runoff? You know, these are the kinds of things that you can do that set a good example, set a model for how the rest of the community should be doing development. And it creates jobs. It creates green jobs. I'm a real believer, and I've waited in long lists for slips, not here, but down in Marina Del Rey and also in Long Beach. And so I know the challenge, and I know that it can be done sustainably. Modern boats handle their waste. They're properly. People can be taught leave no trace policies. That's one thing I would get the Harbor Commission to do, is to start giving classes on leave no trace for recreational boaters, both kayakers, sailors, power boaters, and people are really cooperative about that. I think that boaters as a population are very concerned about the quality of the water that they're fishing in and paddling in and sailing in. You know, there's not one of us that hasn't fallen over the side of our boat many times, especially when you're kayaking and you're in the water. I've been in Humboldt Bay physically many times and love it, but I also want to make sure that it's clean and that I'm not going to be challenged with the quality of the water. So yeah, I think that that's an opportunity that should be addressed. It's kind of like airplane hangars. As many airplane hangars as they built, they could rent. So boats are the same way. I think we need more facilities for smaller boats where people can have smaller, like 14-foot sailboats that they can actually pull up on a dock. There's very limited capacity for those kinds of boats, and those are the kinds of boats that are affordable to a larger part of the population. You can go out and for $1,000 and buy a 14-foot sailboat used, but still a great sailboat, be out and use it out of the bay. But there's no place to put it unless you put it on a trailer and bring it out. A lot of marinas have pull-up docks where these smaller boats and kayaks and rowboats can be pulled out of the water. So this is the kind of thing that we could do very quickly without a lot of investment.
Real quick, rails versus trails need to be an either-or proposition. Do we need to pave over the railroad tracks to have a trail, or is there other alternatives that should be considered?
Well, I talked to Jen Rice about that issue. There's several things that are going on. Certainly, the Railroad Authority could, through the Rails to Trails program, provide an easement for a trail to be built and not give up their right-of-way. The bigger question is that nobody seems to be addressing is who's going to finance the restoration of the railroad? I've talked to many people in the financial sector about this, and that railroad is just unfinanceable. I just don't know why we're spending more money to study something that everybody has said, even when times were good, when you could promise things that you didn't really have to deliver on, the answer was still no. It's unfinanceable.